Hi, I'm Mr. Peterson. I teach 7th grade English at Village Christian, and I also do a lot with technology. So I wanted to talk to you today about our students' iPads. You know, the iPad, the solution and cause of all of our educational problems. I love using the iPad in my class. We do a ton of online work, but it's really hard when a student's work machine is his or her distraction machine. And so I want to talk today about a couple ways that you can put some of the parent controls on your child's iPad so that it's more of a work machine and less of a distraction machine. So when you're ready, grab your child's iPad and follow along with these instructions.
So here we have my child's iPad, and I'm going to turn on all the parental control settings. But the most important thing before I start is I need a safe place to keep passwords, because I'm going to be turning on functions that I need to be able to access, but my child cannot unlock. And if I, as the parent, forget the password, it'll be really difficult to get back. In fact, I think I'll have to do a fresh restore of the iPad, and it'll be, the student might lose some work. So keeping password safe is really important. Okay, and everything that we're going to be doing is found in the Settings app. So let's open Settings, and we're going to be accessing this new function called Screen Time. So I'm just actually going to I'm going to swipe down and get the little search bar and look for Screen Time. Okay, and I haven't turned it on yet, so I'm going to turn that on. And it asks, is this an iPad for me or for my child? It is for my child. Okay. And here's a place where I can limit the time when my child can use the iPad. And I think I'm going to just say not now. I could see some situations where my student might need to access this iPad a little earlier than 7, and hopefully my child's not doing homework after 10, but you never know. But it can be set here. I'm going to hit not now. Okay, so app limits. This is a place where we can set a time limit for using certain kinds of apps like social media and games. I guess this is as good a time as any to say that before you start this, you should decide in what way are you comfortable with your child using the iPad. As a teacher, I recommend that your child's iPad is just a work machine, that it has productivity apps, but I actually think it's best if there's no games or no social media. That's definitely you can decide something you can decide as a family. But I will say this: I have had students who, instead of running around during break time and using up energy, they might be playing games on a screen, and then they come to class after lunch and they have all sorts of energy because they've been sitting still for half an hour. So not having games on the school iPad is a nice thing. Okay, but here is the place where you can set a time limit for certain apps. I'm going to skip this one because this iPad doesn't have any games or social media. Okay, so content and privacy. This is something we're gonna do. First, when I tap this, it's going to ask me for a password. And so this is where I'm going to make up a passcode. Make sure that this is a different passcode than the one used to unlock it. This is the kind of passcode you're going to want to write down in a safe place. Maybe it's the address of a grandparent, or something that's easy for you to remember that a child won't remember. I'm just going to type 1, 2, 3, 4 because this is just for practice. Okay, and I'm going to enter it twice. Okay. Now, one of the nice things about screen time is this new app that's in the operating system will tell you, will keep track of how many minutes your child has used their iPad. And I believe it can even send you a report regularly. And that's pretty nice to be able to see how long your child's been using the iPad. Okay. So I'm going to screen time, content and privacy restrictions. Okay, so this little red icon, content and privacy restrictions. I'm going to tap that, and here's my password that I just created, and I'm going to turn on content and privacy restrictions. Okay, so iTunes and app purchases. I'm going to tap that. Now, one thing that you can consider is deleting any games and social media apps that are on the iPad. If you do that, it will be important here in the iTunes and App Store purchase tab to make sure that the student can't just reinstall. Okay, so for installing apps, I'm going to say no. You, as the parent, can come back and do it later by entering that 4-digit passcode, but the student can't do it. Okay, deleting apps, I guess I can allow that. There's no problem with my child deleting apps. In-app purchases, I'm not going to allow that. When my children were small, when the in-app purchases first came out, they ended up buying a bunch of stuff that we didn't realize. So let's not do that. Okay. Require a password? Yes, let's always require. And since we're working on this is a good time to go into iTunes and to make a new password that's just for you as the parent. I've seen a lot of students know the password to the iTunes store. This is a good time to change that password. Okay, so now that I've not allowed the student to install apps and I always require a password, now I can go back. Okay. So privacy down here, this is where you can limit, but we don't want to limit the microphone because a lot of students make movies using their iPads. Media and Apple Music, maybe we want to disallow that. But this is where we can turn off certain functions. Okay. Allow changes. These might be a nice place to turn off because we don't want the student to be able to change the passcode, and we don't want them making any changes to the account. So this is a nice place to change these to do not allow. Okay, now content restrictions. Back up here. So iTunes and app purchases, that's where we already said don't allow. Allowed apps. Here is where we can turn off which apps students can use. You know what might be nice? Turning off that news app. I've noticed, and maybe podcasts. I don't think most students need that. And perhaps even the iTunes store. That news app, I've seen some news stories that are appropriate for adults but not for kids. That's a nice one to turn off. AirDrop, I think it's okay to have that. Sometimes students use that to send a school project to another student. Definitely leave the camera on. FaceTime, that's up to you. Some students like to use FaceTime to ask each other homework questions. Other times they end up wasting a lot of time. So turning off FaceTime might be good. And I like having mail on so that the students can use the mail app and log in with their school account, and that way they can receive notifications from Google Classroom. Okay, and content restrictions. Okay, so we're going to leave United States. Music, we're going to set music to clean. Music profiles and posts, I think we can turn that off. Movies, this might be where you don't allow any movies on the iPad or only G or PG, but that's where we can do this. This iPad doesn't have any movies on it, so I'm not going to, but this could be where you could turn that off. Same thing with TV shows, same thing with books. We'll set that to clean. Nothing, I don't think anything that teachers are prescribing would fit into that. Besides, I prefer paper books anyway. And apps, here's where you can do the age rating. And most of the apps that teachers would ask students to have are, like a low age rating anyway. Okay, web content. This is a nice one. You can let's limit adult websites, but keep in mind that every so often when we're doing research, I'll have students that aren't allowed to go to a website that is perfectly legitimate for school research, and so being able to come home and ask the parent to turn this off is important. So let's remember where we can adjust this. Okay, Siri, maybe turn off the explicit language in Siri, and don't allow Siri to circumnavigate your limits. Let's say don't allow there. Okay, and then Game Center. I'm just going to turn off all of the Game Center functions because this is the school machine. This is a machine for school, not for games. Okay. And all right, so that's looking pretty good. Okay, so let's go to this screen time settings. And this is where I can look at how much this iPad has been used recently in the last 7 days. This iPad hasn't been used much, but this is the screen where you could see how often the iPad is being used. Okay. Turn off screen time. Okay, so if you go to this screen time app and you flip all those switches, and especially if you remember that passcode, that way you can really limit how your student can use their iPad. And then this is a way that the iPad will get used more for schoolwork and less for games and social media. But the most important thing is to always be in conversation about this. Talk to your student about why they shouldn't be wasting time on cat videos on YouTube, or talk to your student about why it's important to not view things that are inappropriate to kids, because once you see it once, you can't unsee it. And good habits about games and good habits about being in contact online only with people that are safe and reliable. So hopefully that's helpful, and hopefully it'll help your student focus on classwork without distractions.